Still the biggest international story, the plot to assassinate Donald Trump, the former US president. We hope to share more details of the 20-year-old shooter Thomas Matthew Crooks, what exactly he did on the day when he attacked the former US president, nearly killing him before being taken down. I'm now joined by Ray Locker, a journalist and author of Nixon's Gamble and Haig's Coup, Robert Shapiro, the American political scientist, and John Rosamondo, a commentator on US national security. Thank you all very much for being with us. Mr. Rosamondo, what do we know about the last couple of hours before the shooter was taken down? Where was he? What was he doing?
Well, we know that Mr. Crooks was observed at least a half hour or so before the shooting by security, and that nothing was done to intercept him. One report indicated that a police officer, approached Crooks, but nothing was done to stop him. Now, this morning, we find out from the director of the Secret Service that no one was posted on the roof of the building where Mr. Crooks took his shots at President Trump because it was deemed too steep of an incline. And, we find that this individual, was given a clear shot. And we also know that the counter snipers had him in their sights before he opened fire. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Mr. Rosamondo, isn't it also bizarre that there is now information to suggest that not only had the shooter been sighted, he was actually filmed. There were photographs taken of him. The security detail in that area, according to CBS, had actually shared photographs amongst each other. He had been identified as a suspect well before he actually bear crawled his way up that roof, and yet he wasn't taken out. So would you suggest that there was a systemic failure well beyond the final moments?
Well, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and going all the way to the top of the Secret Service. Why weren't actions taken? I've been to an event where President Trump spoke, and you couldn't get anywhere near him. The security was tight, but the other report indicates that the Secret Service A-team was diverted to an event in Pittsburgh where First Lady Jill Biden was speaking, and that they gave second stringers to cover President Trump. The excuse was he's a former president, so he doesn't warrant the same security as a sitting president of the United States. However, Donald Trump is somebody in the U.S. that you either love him or you hate him, and there are a lot of threats to him, and I cannot understand for the life of me why they would allow this to happen.
Ray Locker, is it not frustrating that 48 hours after this took place, we still know so little about Thomas Matthew Crooks? We do know that we have some pictures of him in school. We do know that he sort of bought ammunition on the day before the attack or the hours ahead of the attack. But that's essentially it. There's not very much more we know about him. Is that really a cause of concern, that the larger motive, we are clueless about what it is?
Well, look, it's been almost 61 years since Lee Harvey Oswald killed John F. Kennedy. We still don't know what his real motive was. Look, there are millions of people who go through life in the United States who don't leave much of a trace. Not all of us are on social media posting manifestos or leaving incriminating documents in our bedrooms at home or telling our neighbors, hey, I'm going to shoot the former president of the United States at a rally. It's very frustrating. I think every American and people obviously around the world want to know why this happened, who this guy was. And there's still a lot of unanswered questions, and they may remain unanswered for a long, long time.
Robert Shapiro, how does this play out politically for President Biden, for his party, the Democrats, and the Republicans?
Well, the Republican convention and the events that have occurred have really been a wake-up call to Biden and the Democrats. They've been put a bit on the defensive having to do with accusations that their rhetoric, their accusations of Trump being a threat to democracy has helped produce a situation that led to the shooting. The convention itself would normally be a big positive event for the Republicans, and it's become even a more positive event. And the big question, as I think you've suggested already, is what kind of position will Trump himself take in his speech? Will he become more subdued and deliberative and statesmanlike and let others do the attacking of the Democrats, or will he come out fight, the way he did after the shooting?
Mr. Shapiro, a lot of the narrative in the last couple of weeks, if not months, has been around Joe Biden and his ability to potentially lead the United States in the next term. He's not been particularly articulate of late. A lot of discourse around whether he is able to lead the United States as president once again. Do you believe that discourse is no longer going to be the focus? Perhaps this attack on Trump will replace that as the dominant theme?
Yes, I agree. I mean, it's basically put the debate among Democrats on hold for the moment. And I think to the benefit of Biden, who wants to continue to run for the presidency. At this point, I think the Democrats are taking a wait and see position, depending on how Biden does in other campaign events and interviews. For the moment, at least, the Republicans really are going to dominate the limelight, and the Democrats will have their turn next after the Republican convention as they go into their own convention.
Yeah. John Rosamondo, as a commentator on U.S. national security issues, going forward, do you believe that the presidential detail or the security detail of top American political leaders will need to change after this attack?
Well, I think that it's just a reminder that there needs to be a more thorough investigation before such events, and that we can't let the sort of security lapses that we had on Saturday happen again. I think that we've always worked to have security. I mean, we've gone over 40 years between assassination attempts on a current or former chief executive, the last being Ronald Reagan in April of 1981. So we've done a pretty good job. We have to not let this happen again.
Ray Locker, last question to you. For those of us who aren't in the United States, thousands of kilometers away, the fact that somebody can walk into a shop, pick up an AR-15 rifle, this was the father of this shooter, pick up ammunition and then go shoot. It's just something that's unthinkable, because we hear and we read and we report all of the attacks that take place in America as a result of the lack of your gun control laws. And yet Trump is somebody who would be the first one to defend the law as it exists and suggest that, look, the right to arm is a fundamental right in the United States. That part of the narrative will not change, I would suggest, despite what's happened to him.
You're exactly right. Look, it's never made sense to me. We had a ban on assault weapons for 10 years between 1994 and 2004. We should still have one now. These weapons aren't really used for anything other than killing people. You don't need to have an AR-15 to go deer hunting. It's probably the worst kind of weapon you'd want to have. And yet we're awash in these things. And you're right, some family member of the shooter went and bought this thing with very little to do. I mean, then the shooter himself went out and bought ammunition for it. And the next thing you know, he's shooting at the former president of the United States. Could have altered the course of U.S. or world history. And we seem powerless to do anything about it. It's really disturbing. And that, to me, is something that needs to be dealt with. But we've needed to deal with that for a long time and haven't done it.
Right. Well, I'd like to thank you all very much, for speaking to us and explaining what the situation in the United States is presently. So many questions at this stage. Hopefully there'll be some answers, but even now, the actual motive, we have no idea whatsoever about. Ray Locker, I appreciate that point that, we perhaps may never really know. But thank you all very much for joining us this evening. Earlier on today, in an interview to NBC, the US President Joe Biden spoke about a variety of important issues. Biden reiterated that there was no place for violence in politics when commenting on the failed bid to assassinate Donald Trump.
You were in Delaware when this happened. What was your first reaction?
My first reaction was, my God, look, there's so much violence now, the way we talk about it. I mean, the whole notion that there is this, there's no place at all for violence in politics in America. None. Zero.
A step back and done a little soul searching on things that you may have said that could incite people who are not balanced.
Well, I don't think, look, how do you talk about the threat to democracy, which is real, when a president says things like he says? Do you just not say anything because it may incite somebody? Look, I've not engaged in that rhetoric. Now, my opponent is engaged in that rhetoric. He talks about there'll be a bloodbath if he loses.
Who do you listen to on deeply personal issues like the decisions whether to stay in the race or not?
Me. Look, I've been doing this a long time. The idea that I'm the old guy, I am. I'm old. But I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two, my mental acuity has been pretty damn good. I've gotten more done than any president has in a long, long time, in 3.5 years. So I'm willing to be judged on that. I understand why people say, God, he's 81 years old. Whoa, what's he going to be when he's 83 years old or 84 years old? It's a legitimate question to ask.
All right, Biden over there, shocked, he said, at the news of Trump being attacked, but also answering several other questions about his ability, his fitness to run for the post of president once again. Well, the race for the 2024 U.S. presidential election is heating up as Donald Trump announced his running mate today. J.D. Vance, once a vocal critic of the ex-president, has been picked. Trump hopes that the 39-year-old will be able to galvanize youth voters, with all of the momentum being on his side following the failed assassination attempt on the presidential hopeful.
It is therefore my honor to nominate Ohio Senator J.D. Vance for the office of Vice President of the United States of America.
Like Trump, Vance is a fighter. He has steadily transformed himself from someone who once speculated that Trump might be America's Hitler into a loyal soldier for the Trump movement and agenda. Vance came to embrace Trump as he sought a Senate seat in 2022, and he eventually won the former president's endorsement in a crowded Republican primary. Many analysts say no other politician can help Donald Trump carry out a MAGA revolution in Washington more ruthlessly and effectively than Vance. His instinct to punch back is Trumpian, political watchers argue, and his views on foreign policy and the nationalist economic agenda are thoroughly consistent with Trump, if not going even further. Many also argue that his youth renders him unattached from any of the biases of those with close ties to any past Republican administrations, and his geographic background is meant to appeal to voters in the Midwest. Vance first rose to fame in 2016 following the publication of Hillbilly Elegy, which detailed his upbringing in southwestern Ohio and his later ascension to Yale Law School. The book was later adapted into a 2020 film starring Glenn Close and Amy Adams. In the months following Trump's victory in the 2016 presidential election, Vance's account of his family's experiences with poverty and drug addiction came to be viewed by some critics as a revealing portrait into the lives of Americans who helped determine the outcome of the election.
Every issue, I believe, traces back to this fact. On the one hand, the elites in the ruling class of this country are robbing us blind, and on the other hand, if you dare complain about it, you are a bad person. And I'm here to tell you, we need a new politics for a new generation. The old way of doing things ain't working. When the technology industry censors the sitting president of the United States, when it puts you in Facebook jail for uttering an opinion, we're not going to sit by and take it anymore. We're going to go after them. And if they censor conservatives, we're going to make them pay. We're going to go after the multinational companies and the government leaders who are shipping our jobs overseas and making it harder for businesses to prosper.
But Vance is inexperienced, having run and won just one election. He's been in the Senate barely long enough to do anything of note, but with a victory in November, he'll effectively be viewed as the presidential favorite for 2028. In the year and a half since he joined Congress, J.D. Vance has served as one of Trump's most vocal and aggressive supporters on Capitol Hill. But what the Vance selection indicates more than anything is Trumpian confidence. Experts argue that Trump believes he is ahead, that he doesn't need to go outside his lane to make a choice, and that he has the latitude to choose whoever he likes. Now, if Trump is elected, J.D. Vance, who turns 40 in August, would be one of the youngest vice presidents in American history and one with just 2 years of elected experience. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV.